Hi, everyone. I'm the newest host for WIT Talk, and my name is Amy Jo. For our 11th episode of WIT Talk, I'll be talking with Vergenia Shelton. She's the president and CEO of Intuitive Research and Technology here in Huntsville, Alabama. And besides leading an innovative company, she also was on the 2020 list of Women Who Shape Alabama. She is a part of the Society of Women Engineers, and she served on the founding committee of WIT. Today, we will dive into Virginia's career and how stewardship has influenced her along the way. Let's get started. For the first question, just tell us about yourself.
Well, Vergenia Shelton, I'm from Scottsboro, so grew up there, went to high school there, moved off and went to Auburn for my undergrad, and then began worked a few different places, started in Eufaula, Alabama, but then ended up in Atlanta. Wanted to come home, be closer to family, and raise kids, so ended up at Intuitive. Never imagined that I'd be here over 20 years later.
So you mentioned going to Auburn.
Yes.
So could you tell us more about that experience and afterwards, just kind of what your thoughts were, what you did?
Yeah, it was great. I actually went to a small school in Tennessee to start with, Freed-Hardeman University, for a couple of years, and then transferred to Auburn and their engineering program. It was great. Their industrial systems engineering program is really good. Started co-oping after I first got there, so was in and out every quarter. But that was a great experience. It made it so much easier when I went to get a job right after school. So it was fun. Football, all of that stuff was fun. My sister is a couple years behind me, and when she graduated, we actually went there about the same time. So we lived together and do that. So just good times.
Have you always come by leadership naturally, or was this a skill that you developed, or it could be both?
Probably a little bit of both. I say my very first job, I had the best manager ever. And he was one of those that supported you, but did not baby you and just kind of you got to figure it out. So, but I think he showed a good experience for that. But, even growing up, it was just my mom and me and my sister. And so she always made me feel like I could do anything I wanted to do. So I kind of like being in charge and making decisions. So, it's kind of been natural, different places. But I think a lot of the experiences over time kind of lead you to seeing good managers, right? And I've been very fortunate that I've had really good ones throughout my career, with one exception. And I say I learned more from that one exception than any of the others. But watching, and that was before I got here, but watching how the other side of leadership and the way I don't think people should treat people, and I think really helped shape that. But just having good managers along the way, learning from them, but also trying to figure out who you are, right? In our environment, everybody's different, and just doing things the way everybody else does them didn't feel naturally to me either. Growing up through my career, I had a lot of people say, well, you gotta do that. And I'm like, well, that's not natural for me. That doesn't feel comfortable for me. Or you can't do that. Well, that's not comfortable for me either. So, taking the input, taking the way other people have done things, but then figuring out what works best for you. Because I know, and I think you've had some people talk about authenticity in your podcast, but, to me, that's one of the biggest things. You can't be a good leader if you don't really believe what you're leading, not authentic. So you got to figure out how to do it your way. So it's taken a long time. I say I learn something new every day. But
Yeah, I agree. That's very important. Just kind of understanding how you approach things and things like that. Yeah.
Well, and figuring out where you can do it. I don't think I think my leadership style over the years fits great with Intuitive. I don't think it would fit great with every company's model and what's important to them.
So stepping into your career and what that's looked like, because I know you said you graduated from Auburn and then you went to Falkville. Is that where you live for a while? Eufaula. Yes. I got the F, but nothing else. Okay. You went to Eufaula. Yeah. And then you went to Atlanta and then back to here. Okay.
Yes. So I worked for that company in Eufaula for quite some time. And then, so I spent some time in Chicago and some different places, and then transferred with them to Atlanta. I left them for a little while to go to a startup company to help them get started, which is where I had my bad manager experience. So I called about 6 months in and I said, okay, I know you sent me over to do this. This company's not going to work, by the way. But we're going to have to cut this short. And so they said, well, I was going to Atlanta to do some product development stuff. So they said, that's not quite ready yet. So I said, okay, but I'm ready to come back. So they said, okay, well, you can come back and manage our warranty department. Didn't know anything about managing a warranty department. But I said, I'll take it. So did that for a while, which I think a lot of my experiences drive back on that, learning, hearing people's complaints, learning how to solve problems different ways. I really learned a lot from that experience. So went back over there to do that, and then moved into product development once it came to Atlanta. So and then stayed there until I relocated here.
So you went from something that you were familiar with to something you were unfamiliar with in your role, and you kind of had to learn how to.
Yeah, we used to laugh because we did commercial lighting. It was a commercial lighting manufacturer, and so I laugh at all the different things we had to do. We had this one project where they called and they said, "Hey, our sockets had gone out in our lighting, but it's in a big movie theater." And they said to get scaffolding in there is hundreds of thousands of dollars, and you have to shut down the theater and all that to get up there to replace. So we're like, okay, well, how can we do this different? So anyway, we actually ended up hiring a repeller, somebody that rappelled down mountains, to come in from the top to get to those. Whole lot cheaper than scaffolding and all that.
That is so smart.
Yeah, so I think it taught me a lot about, problem solving is just figuring out the best solution. There's always some kind of solution. You got to find the best one. So I think it got me familiar with trying to solve problems and figuring those things out. So yeah,
that's so cool.
Experience.
That's awesome. I love that. So you kind of told me about your career up to this point, the different roles that you've had and everything. Can you take me through your thought process as you stepped into the role that you currently have at Intuitive and what that looked like?
So for me, I've been here 20 years now. So I came in really doing things that pulled on my past experience, with manufacturing and traveling to depots and supporting customers. So I've kind of grown in the organization and done a little bit of everything throughout my 20 years. Before I stepped into the president role, we had a lot of conversations about what that looked like. Because I really never saw that as my path. I knew I loved the company. But if you looked around the industry at the time, my experiences looked a lot different than what most presidents and CEOs of companies look like. But when talking to the founders, a lot of the conversations centered around, yes, there's, in this industry, you need people on your team that understand the industry and people on your team that have different experiences. But when we're looking for somebody that we want to lead the company, we want somebody that core believes in the foundation of the company. And it's hard to find. It's harder to find that than the other stuff. We believe that you'll carry on the legacy the way we meant for it to be carried on and what's important to the company. So for us, our fundamentals of employees, ethics, and communities, we don't give on any of those things. So it was just that, they said, we want somebody. So it was scary. I mean, it was, but, had good leadership around me, team that helped me through it. A lot of it was learning how to be me and not, because the co-founder, one of the co-founders was the president. He had grown up with the company, knew everything about the company, made all the decisions. So it was not only kind of growing, the company was getting bigger and couldn't do it that way, but it was also, I couldn't really do it that way. So I had to rely more on my team and more on inputs and getting the organization ready for helping me make those decisions. So, that was a learning curve and kind of scary, but one thing at a time. If we do the right things right, we figure it all works out. So just one day at a time.
So you're president and CEO, right? And you mentioned that, stepping into that, you had to listen to other people because you have to figure out your style of leadership and everything. So obviously you probably wear many hats as you manage everything at Intuitive. So could you tell us about some of your roles that you've picked up and which one's your favorite, which one's your least favorite?
So between president and CEO, president's probably much more of the engineering brain in me because it's more execution and making sure that we deliver everything for our customers and numbers and budgets and those kind of execution type things. So that's probably more to where I gravitate just naturally based on my background. So the thing I have to spend the most time thinking through is those combination of those two things. Taking a step back from the president and just day-to-day execution and running the company, and looking at this more the strategic vision of where are we going, where is the industry going, how are we going to play in that, how do we position ourselves for that? So that's what I've, over the last few years, really tried to kind of have to separate those two things to look at that vision. So that's probably where I struggle the most and where I need to spend most of my time.
Yes. So you'd say you're more of a detail-oriented person?
I am. So that's my natural comfort zone. So,
okay.
I had a mentor tell me, even before I took the CEO role, you really got to spend time taking your calendar, right? Because at the time you could look at my calendar and every minute was filled up, right? Don't waste any time. Fill it all up with stuff,
yes,
right?
Absolutely.
He said you really have to spend time blocking off sections in your calendar just to think, which was weird to me. I mean, you're just going to block off time to think, right? But that was super helpful because you really do have to just spend time thinking about how does it all come together and what does that mean and how do you navigate that? Because it's not all laid out. I mean, there's books, there's all the things, but we've talked about it a lot especially over the last few years as we've gotten a little bit bigger as a company. People will tell me you can't continue to do the things that you say are important to you as you get bigger. Yeah, you can, right? but people will naturally say you can't because it's hard, right? Mm-hmm. And if you read the
compromise.
Books, you read the books, they say you can't do that. You just watch. We're going to, right? So you have to kind of figure it out. It's not really a plan that says, okay, well, if you do this, then this happens, and you do this happens, right? You got to kind of put all of those things together and say, okay, this is what's important to us. What will we not change? What do we have to adapt on to be, in the industry? What all those things. So how do we grow and adapt while not losing the core fundamentals?
Yes.
And unfortunately, I guess, it's not clear anyway because everybody does it a little bit different. So figuring that out has been fun, but very rewarding to see that we can say, no, we just do it a little bit different way. And watching people go, yes, we can, right? The whole team get behind, yes, we can do it that way and still be the preferred one and do good technical work. We can do all those things while not letting go of what's fundamentally important to us, the company. So it's fun to watch that. A lot of people say you gotta balance, and compromise and you do on a lot of things. Fortunately for us, our founders made it very clear what we would not compromise on, which is what we still won't compromise on. So you don't even have to have those discussions. We don't compromise on that. We don't compromise when it comes to employees, ethics, we just don't compromise. So then you take that off the table and you focus on what you can work on, what you can change, how you can adapt.
That's really neat. And it's good to have that set in stone, we're not going to do this.
I tell people every day, I've got the easiest job in the world because that part, I don't go before the board of directors in those meetings and have to worry about those things because those things are already known.
That's really
and if everybody's clear on that, every day the decisions are easy. You don't worry about, even as we've gotten bigger, people going off and doing something else because they know the company won't do that. So it makes us all kind of go in the same direction a whole lot better.
What is probably your favorite aspect of being in a leadership role?
Taking care of people. People say, what is your biggest worry with everything going on? It's just people, right? Making sure that all 600 of our employees have a job and they're getting paid and their families are good and they got balance. And so I like the people side of it.
I think that's a very good aspect to enjoy. I think that's awesome. You've mentioned how you're detail-oriented, and one of the biggest challenges whenever you came in is kind of picking up both roles of CEO looking ahead and then president looking at the details. So you mentioned that as one of your challenges. Do you have any other challenges that you faced stepping into both of these roles?
Probably the same ones everybody else has.
I
mean, there's the goodness about our industry is I think the mission is great, supporting the warfighter and Department of Defense and the things that we do. The mission itself is amazing. I mean, it changes every day and we see it even more with everything that's going on right now, and I say we're usually a stronger company in times like this because we we can adapt and we can do it quickly. And but there's a lot of emotions that go with that, especially right now, and jobs and changes and everything's new every day. So that's the part that makes it fun, is figuring out how to solve them. I think the biggest thing I've learned is you can't be afraid of what's going to change, because it changes every day. How are we going to adapt to that and make sure, and just making sure, that I make the decisions. From an engineer at heart, I want 120% of the data to make a decision. Right?
Yes,
you can't have that, right? So it's finding that comfort zone of information that you need to make an educated decision. But you can't wait on too much information, because it moves too fast. So just trying to really find that balance of making, even though I'm a numbers person, I feel like I'm a kind of a passionate decision maker too. So balancing those two things to try to always make the right decisions for the company, not just in the moment, but for in the future, and trying to balance that. So I spend a lot of time, trying to do that correctly. We all make mistakes, and I'm sure I make wrong decisions every day, but I try really hard not to. Now, the good thing is, like we said before, the fundamentals are there. So that's not a challenge. So it's just making sure that we consider all those things and try to do the right thing.
So, just adapting and making good decisions while also having the data. Yeah, absolutely.
What is that?
I feel like I need to be taking notes, like something.
It's such a hard balance too.
It is.
To find that comfort spot.
Absolutely. I mean, the things you're saying, I'm thinking about, obviously I'm not a CEO of a company, but I'm taking classes, and just finding that balance with that. And really any stage of life that you're in, whether you're, a mom, or you're in school, or, whatever role you take on, just finding that balance. Yeah. So diving into your theme of stewardship, what does stewardship mean to you?
What I like about that word is I think it incorporates several things that I like in general. So I think it's got an aspect of authenticity and integrity, which I think is a huge part. I think it's got aspects of adaptability, empowerment, and service. Right, a lot of it, what we should do as we're running companies is service. And then it has an aspect of purpose. So when I think about that word, although it's hard to define, I think it has aspects of all of those things, which to me are some important aspects.
I would not have put the word, I wouldn't put the word purpose in it, but it makes sense, because when you're stewarding, you're being intentional with your resources. How have you grown in your ability to steward?
Again, I think we learn something new every day. And if we're not learning something new, then we're not doing our job. So I think, if I look back, I think growing from a standpoint of making sure that the organization can be aligned with what's important in our purpose and how we treat people and how authentic we are, just even in the industry, right? We, our thing is we do what we say we're going to do always. Whether it's good for us or bad for us, that's what we want to do. So growing and helping try to learn to communicate that across a growing company to make sure that we're all aligned. I guess the easier part to me is just the people part, one-on-one. It's we spend a lot of time, we say we're bringing people in the family. So as we grow as a company, we do it at a pace where we can still know each other, know where people are going, where they want to go, what their challenges are. And I think if you spend the time to know people, then the decisions are easy. So many people get away from the people side, and then it becomes just about the numbers, because you don't know the people. But if you really know people, you're going to make the right decisions for those people. So I think it's, as we grow, it's making sure that we find ways. A lot of people tell me a lot of times, in your role, you can't spend as much time with employees as you have in the past. And I'm like, I don't think you can lose that piece, because that is the core, right? And that's where it keeps you solid in your base on what's important to you, right? If you don't know each other, it's easy to get away from that. We saw it a lot during COVID, and people just being separated, right? We had to really be intentional about not feeling that separation, because when you get too separated from people, the decisions become different. So I think I've learned a lot just on how intentional you have to be. And that's in any relationship. I mean, we know it in relationships when we're dating people or our family and all those kind of things. It's the same intentional nature, I think, when it comes to a working relationship. If you want people to be here for their whole career and believe in what the company believes in, and everybody pulling in the same direction, then you have to be really intentional about what actions you do. And everybody needs a little bit different things. Some people want mentorship. Everybody needs something a little bit different, and you got to figure out how you tailor to meet the needs of each of those.
Kind of sum it up with one word. How you grow with stewarding is you grow in intentionality.
Yes.
And how you treat people. Yeah. So another question kind of to do with stewardship. How do you incorporate stewardship characteristics like integrity and purpose and service, like the words you mentioned? How do you kind of incorporate those characteristics into how you lead?
I think it has to be in everything, right? It's really kind of the fabric of what you do every day. If those aren't on the forefront, then that changes, right? And I think that goes back to kind of what we talked about. If that's important to you and that's authentic to you, then it's easy, right? If you're having to force it and you're having to think about when you make a decision, oh, I got to think about those things, it's much more forced. Now you can probably train yourself a little bit to be better at it, but it's a whole lot easier if the things that you believe and are authentic about align with what your company believes, right? That just makes it a whole lot easier. And then you're not having to think about those things. They just are. When it comes to decisions about that, you don't even have to think about those. Those just come naturally because those are kind of on the forefront. So I think they have to be woven in to every decision. And some people, we talk about this a lot too. Some people think when you go to make a decision, you weigh those things against other things and you're making, no, if those are the important things, then you don't have to think about those because those just happen naturally. So you don't really have a decision point. We talk about it a lot when it comes to laying people off. So one of the things that's really important to us as a company over our 26 years, it's been, there's up and downs in our industry. And, one of the things that I didn't like about it when I first came in was, not to Intuitive, but to the industry, was the thought that people jumped around a lot because contracts ended and they had to go find another job and those kind of things. And for us, it's always been contracts are they're a method to get our job done, but they're not about why we hire people, right? And who we hire and those kind of things. For us in 26 years, we've never had to lay anybody off because we didn't have work, even though we've lost contracts just like everybody else. But for us, when we were talking to people, I was talking to somebody and I've shared this story with a lot of people that have interviewed with us. Somebody was telling me about getting laid off and we were talking about the downsides and all that. But he went on to say, but my company was great. I loved them. They told me they would never lay me off, but they lost a big contract and they didn't have a choice. And I said, okay, well then now I have to stop you. I was with you till then, right? I get that you believe that they didn't have a choice when they made that choice, but they made the choice way before that. Now they didn't ever think they would have to use it, but they made it a long time at the beginning because it was an option. For us, it's not an option. So we do things differently. We hire differently. We plan differently. We communicate differently. Our managers have different goals. All of that builds to the fact that that's not a choice that we're willing to make, right? And so you can say that you're not going to make it, but you really meant, I hope I never have to make it. And I think there's a big difference, right? And for us, the fundamental things that are important are not a decision point. And you would not believe how many decision points that takes out. If you take out the stuff that you're not even willing to consider, then, and you can only have to focus on the other things, it makes your decision process a whole lot easier.
Because instead of having it as an option, you plan around that and try to figure out.
Oh yeah. You set up your whole business around, around that. And so you never get to that point because we know that's not an option. So
that's a good perspective to have. I like that. What are some results of having too little stewardship in a leadership role?
And it depends on what aspects, right? I think if you don't have authenticity, people don't want to follow, right? If you don't have purpose, people don't want to follow. If people don't see you empowering them to be better and to grow in their careers and all those things, and you're just a number, right? Then they're not as committed, right? And it's not good for them and good for their career. So I say now, again, in an environment like we're in now, we do so well because the team binds together, they adapt, they figure out how to make it work. And we do that as a team. That doesn't mean I have to do it, right? Or a few of the leadership team has to do it. Everybody's kind of pulling in that same direction. So I think if you don't have stewardship, which is all those things combined, your day to day is probably really hard, right? Because you don't have, I got 600 people pulling toward the same goal, right? I'm not having to push it. They're right along there, right? We're all right along there together. So I think if you don't have if you don't balance all those things well and have all those things, I can't imagine what your day to day would be like as a president and CEO, of a company of our size. I can't imagine how hard that would be every day. And that's that's definitely not just me. That's all the leaders in the company. That's the founders, the way that they set it up and the values that was important to them. And then that's every person that's on the team.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
We talk about it when we interview people, and people fit great different places. These are what things that are important to us as a company. If that fits you, then you'll be pulling in the same direction as the rest of the family, right? And so, I think stewardship, if you don't have it with all those things, yeah, your day to day is probably really difficult. And I don't think we'd be near as successful as we are.
Yeah. So, a lack of stewardship means a lack of success. It means a lack of being able to retain people because they're not all going in the same direction. Yes. Absolutely. Yeah. I can see that. Kind of along those same lines, how would leaders use stewardship to kind of benefit their employees and also themselves moving forward?
Again, I think teaching the next generation, making sure that each and every one of them, everybody feels supported, not only in the current role that they're in, and knowing that we have their best interests at heart and that we are looking out for them and protecting them. And that's what, it's what we say. But we support a lot of government customers, and they give us lots of guidance every day on their programs and different things. But I tell all our folks that, our job is to protect you and watch out for you, make sure the company is stable and growing so that you have a place to be, make sure you don't have to worry about all those things. That's what we're here for. So teaching everybody that comes in what's important to us as a company. And that takes time, right? If they've been other places or new to things, is showing them the importance of stewardship and what that means to the company so that they can then share it with the next folks, right? It has to kind of grow throughout the company, which is one of the reasons we say we grow at the pace that we do, especially from an employee headcount standpoint, is we got to have enough growth that people can move in their career, right? And there's growth opportunities, but we can't have so many coming in that we can't control all of that part, the stewardship part of teaching them how we do it and what's important to us as a company, and getting them bought into sharing that with the next people. And sometimes that just takes time. I say with us as a company, our uptake's a little bit slower, right? You come in, we tell you everything, but the longer you've been here, the longer you get what's important, and the longer you see it play out, or you see us lose a contract and everybody still be covering us, still make the numbers, all those things, or you decide that, hey, I don't love this and I want to go do something else, and you move around in the company. It takes a little while for you to see it happen, right? And be committed to that. I think other places it goes downhill faster, right? It seems great when you get there, and then it goes down, right? So I think we take the other route, but it's a little bit slower to sometimes see it and see all those things come to fruition. But once you do, and then you begin to share those with other people, it makes it go for the longer haul, right? We want to be around for our grandkids to say, hey, my grandmother used to work in Intuitive, right? So so we're in it for that vision of being that company for a long time.
Absolutely. Along those lines of wanting to kind of have a legacy that sticks around for Intuitive, for people to look at and say, these are their values, because you'll be around for a while and people can witness, what y'all have done. What kind of a legacy do you personally want to leave as a leader and also as a steward?
I think from a legacy standpoint, it's our reputation. For us, we want everybody in the industry, from whether that be our employees, other companies out there, or our government customers or commercial customers, anybody that we can come in contact with, no matter what, to be able to say, yeah, when I work with them, they do what they say they're going to do, right? From a customer standpoint, we always deliver, right? We do what's best for them. From a working with other company standpoint, right? And teaming and all those things, we're going to do what we say we're going to do no matter what, right? And take care of them as teammates. And if we say we're going to do team with you or give you this much or different things, then we're going to do what we say we're going to do. Mm-hmm. Same thing with employees, right? If we tell you what we're going to do, and you're bought into that, we're going to do what we say we're going to do. So I think that's the biggest legacy that anybody can have, right? You can be good at things, and we want to be better. Technically, we're growing every year, and we want to be really good at the technical things that we do. But a lot of people can grow and be really good at the technical things. But I think if you match that with people feeling comfortable that if they come to us, we're going to do what we said we were going to do. That trust factor is probably, I think, the biggest legacy that you can leave.
Because people recognize, it's intuitive. They're gonna keep their word.
That's what we want, right? Mm-hmm. We want when somebody says the name, that people go, oh, they did what were great, or their people love working there, or all of those things.
So, kind of wrapping up, going into the last section of this, what advice would you have for women who want to lead specifically?
I think the biggest thing on that side is learning a lot from the people that you're around, but understanding that you don't have to do it their way, right? You got to figure out your way. I know when I was a young engineer growing up, that was probably my struggle at first, sitting through meetings with, males or people that were senior to me, hearing the talk and going, okay, well, I should be saying more. I should be, and you kind of mirror yourself after somebody, which isn't necessarily bad. But learning how to take the good from what people have, but developing it to be where it's your authentic self and the way, right? Because I got a lot of advice, right? You can't do, you should do, you should, I think you need to listen to all that, because I think it all is input. Whether you choose to take it or not, I think depends on what you believe and what's important to you and what's authentic to you. So I think my biggest thing would just be to tell young women that, first off, we can do anything we want to do, right? So don't be scared of something being different, right? If anybody can figure it out, we can figure it out, right? But then just learn knowing that you can be you and do it your way and be good at it. It doesn't have to be somebody else.
That's awesome. That's great advice. As you've kind of, you've gone through college, you worked in Eufaula, I got it this time, and then Atlanta, and then came back. Do you have any advice for balancing ambition with rest?
Yeah, I think you have to balance it. So one of the big things, when I was on the commercial side and before I moved back here, it was not a very healthy balance. I worked a lot. I tell people my story of when I finally knew it was the end. I love the company. It was great for me. But home, 2:00 in the morning, and I get a phone call we had just put in a new security system at the plant, and I get a call from the lady at the guard shack. The gate isn't working. It's open. She's scared, and she's locked herself upstairs in the little guard tower thing, right? I'm like, what am I doing? It's 2:00 in the morning. Like, it was a lot. It was all the time. It was nights and weekends. And it became a habit because there was always more to do. And so when I came here at Intuitive, it was about this time I was starting my family, and I said, I will work super duper hard when I'm here, and I will give it everything I got, but I will be there for my kids' events. I will have a balance. Now, if that causes a ceiling for me at some point, I'm willing to accept that. Now looking back, I tell people don't accept that because there's places you don't have to accept that, right? Because I was able to grow, do anything I needed to do here and grow into the role of president and CEO and still be at my kids' basketball games and be there for them, right? Mm-hmm. So work really hard when I'm here, but I don't feel like I have to pick between the two. And I think a lot of president and CEOs do. And maybe at different places you have to. And I'm fortunate that I'm in a place where you can have it all. And I don't think that's everywhere, but there are places. So don't limit yourself by thinking you have to make that choice because I think you can have it all and do it all well. You just may have to find the right place to do it.
So that is all I have for today. Would you like to talk about anything else? Anything else you want to add?
No, I just appreciate you coming. It was good to talk to you and to share.
It was awesome. But before we go, is there any way people can contact you who listen to this?
Go onto our website. There's contact information on there. Just have them reach out to us. It's got phone numbers and all, and you can call the front desk and they'll transfer you to me. It's easy enough. So we're still small enough for that. So love to hear from people. Yeah, if they want to reach out about anything and
Okay, awesome. Yeah, that's great. Thank you so much for joining us today. You were excellent to talk to, very wise, very helpful. So thank you so much.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, it was great. People who are listening, please stay tuned for our next episode of WIT Talk, and we'll see you soon.